Okay, so we cleaned our fish, and now you want to know how to bag it properly so that it'll stay good for a while. Well, we put it in 2 different bowls. We got striper and catfish. I always separate it by the type of fish. We covered it. You don't have to saran wrap it, but just enough to cover it so you don't have a lot of air getting in those bowls while they're soaking. Now that you soaked it for a minimum of 24, but preferably 48 to 72 hours in salt water, we know this fish is going to stay good for a while, because on top of that, we're going to rinse it off real good, and then we're going to freeze it in salt water. Now me, I've tried Ziploc bags, I've tried all the expensive stuff, and I like these. It's smart and simple. It's the Dollar General brand. $1 a box, and these will outperform in the freezer Ziploc and all the other major brands every day. Every time I try the more expensive stuff, they break or crack. A lot of times whenever you put your fish in the freezer, there'll be a tiny little pinhole that you don't see. And it's just inevitable. That's going to happen every now and then. With these, that pinhole stays the size of that pinhole once it starts leaking and it freezes. With the Ziploc brand, that pinhole tends to start splitting, and then you have an ice cube on the outside of the bag, and you got to go ahead and think about thawing that fish out and cooking it, or you're going to have issues. Alright, so we went ahead and we started labeling our fish. I got flathead bags, and I got striper bags. We've got a stack of cups, and what we're going to do is if you're going to put a certain amount per bag, for me, for my quart bags, I put ½ pound. For my gallon bags, I put 2 pounds. And instead of weighing it as you're putting it in the bag, what I do is I use a little kitchen scale, and I'll put the meat in a bowl in the cups, fill them up, and then I'll have all my cups ready so that all I have to do is dump a cup in the bag, fill it up, go. Dump a cup in the bag, fill it up, go. Alright, so we have our cups full of meat over here now. This is this striper batch, and put about ½ pound per cup. So we got 3½ pounds there, right? And but the way I did that is, first of all, we took all the meat out of the bowl, dumped it in the sink, and then rinsed it off really good, put it back in the bowl as we went, and then put it in the cups, about ½ pound per cup. Now, when you're bagging your meat, keep in mind that when you put that on the scale, if you decide to do it like I do, it's 0.4 ounces. So, whenever we put the meat in there, we wanted to come up with about 8.6, 8.7. Because you might have a little bit more water in that meat than another one. So just to be safe, it's going to be just barely over 8 ounces. Okay. Alright, now, first step, you're going to put a little bit of salt in the bag. Then I throw a quick sprayer in there. Get that nice and mixed up. Dump my ½ pound of meat in there. The reason why I do a ½ pound is because I could do dang near probably 3/4 pound per bag. But a lot of times this meat will sit for 6 months because I give away 90% of my meat. And I want to make sure it's going to stay nice and fresh. And then just make sure you squeeze all that air out. Bam. There you go. Like you say, it doesn't look as much as it is, but putting the same amount of meat in every bag makes it consistent. So if you're saying to yourself, how many bags of meat do I need to lay out? Well, you know, for me, when I'm doing a big fish fry, I have a ¼ pound of meat per person, and that works out great, along with all the sides and stuff. Well, I know every bag that I have has a ½ pound, so that's 2 bags, or that's 1 bag for 2 people. I'm sure there's been a lot of times when you didn't know how many bags to lay out, or you had an excessive amount left over, or you found yourself gorging yourself because you had extra meat. Well, putting the same amount in every bag sure helps that. Alright, so we got it all bagged. I like to bag them out, put them on towels on the counter. That way we're not getting water everywhere and the bottom's already dry. Then we'll come back and all you gotta do is dry off the tops. You wanna make sure your bags are dry when you put them in the freezer. Do not just bag it, put those wet bags in the freezer, or you are gonna have issues. They'll stick to each other, they'll stick to the freezer, bad times. All right, you'll notice, and you have to excuse my little welder hands, hey, we got bubbles in some of them. Well, if it was any bigger than that, that is about as max as I'll get. If it's any bigger than that, you want to go ahead and redo that bag. Let some water out, fill it back up, and reseal it. But that's not going to hurt anything on a gallon-sized bag. Now, I will suggest, if you look, I go time, type, amount. Every bag. Striper May half pound. On every single one of them. And on the catfish, I even put what type of catfish. The reason why is because if you're giving meat to friends and strangers, a lot of them think that, you know, channel cat sucks and blue cat is just awesome. So out of courtesy, I make sure they get blue cat.